Not a good look that you did with the shit you did to me.
When a widely disseminated podcast appearance devolves into a full-scale legal catastrophe, the consequences can be profound. Shannon Sharpe, a former NFL icon, currently confronts grave allegations of sexual assault, SA, while comedian Katt Williams refuses to remain silent regarding the controversy. The digital sphere has become inundated with discourse, catalyzed by the emergence of clandestine recordings. Amidst this volatile environment, Sharpe's projected $100 million professional trajectory now faces existential jeopardy. In this analysis, we critically unpack the escalating scandal that has polarized public sentiment and destabilized celebrity narratives. A brief contextualization is necessary, as the developments of the past week have sent seismic tremors throughout Hollywood's cultural landscape. A highly publicized lawsuit has thrust Gabriella Zuniga, a 19-year-old fitness influencer, into the media spotlight. At the heart of her legal complaint lies an array of allegations against Shannon Sharpe, who, at the relevant time, was 54 years old. The accusations she has articulated are profoundly unsettling. Zuniga asserts that throughout the duration of their 2-year relationship, Sharpe engaged in acts of sexual assault, SA, manipulation, and persistent threats, allegedly designed to maintain her isolation and compliance. Repeated requests for cessation during intimate encounters, she contends, were flagrantly disregarded, undermining any notion of genuine consent. Furthermore, Zuniga accuses Sharpe of surreptitiously recording their private interactions, weaponizing their intimacy as a means of coercive control. The gravity of the accusations intensifies with claims that Sharpe purportedly threatened to unalive Zuniga should she disclose her whereabouts to external parties, thereby cultivating an environment of pervasive fear and dependence. Particularly striking to observers is the revelation that Sharpe's youngest offspring surpasses Zuniga in age, a fact that has amplified concerns regarding potential predatory behavior. Public discourse rapidly coalesced around the term grooming to describe the situation, notwithstanding Zuniga's legal status as an adult. While the age differential is not, in itself, unlawful, the described relational dynamics suggest a profound ethical breach, invoking widespread debate over consent, power asymmetry, and emotional exploitation within celebrity culture. Sharpe did not remain passive amidst the controversy. Rather, he launched an aggressive response intended to reframe the emerging narrative. His legal representatives retaliated forcefully, unveiling a series of highly explicit text messages purportedly sent by Gabriella during their relationship. Communications that were anything but discreet. These texts, laden with graphic roleplay propositions, including the use of dog collars, asphyxiation fantasies, and vivid allusions to baby gravy, paint a portrait far removed from innocence. According to Sharpe's defense team, these disclosures substantiate a pivotal claim. Their relationship was not characterized by coercion, but by mutual and enthusiastic participation in elaborate fantasies, allegedly initiated by Gabriella herself. In their assessment, the lawsuit constitutes a deliberate fabrication, an extortion scheme engineered by Gabriella in collaboration with her attorney, Tony Buzbee, aimed at extracting a $50 million settlement from Sharpe. Moreover, Sharpe's attorneys have sought to discredit Buzbee's credibility by highlighting his professional history. Buzbee, they argue, possesses a well-documented pattern of pursuing litigation against high-profile figures. Most notably, he previously filed a sexual assault lawsuit against Jay-Z, which ultimately was dismissed prior to reaching trial. To Sharpe's camp, this repetition signals a calculated strategy. A legal operator navigating celebrity circles in search of lucrative out-of-court resolutions. Compounding the controversy is the highly suspicious timing of the allegations. Sharpe maintains that the eruption of this scandal is far from coincidental, noting that it coincides precisely with his reported negotiations for a $100 million podcast agreement, potentially the most financially significant milestone of his career. The implication is clear. The scandal's sudden emergence is interpreted as a strategic maneuver to undermine or exploit his imminent success. Regardless of perspective, the conflict has escalated from a public relations crisis to a confrontation of existential proportions for Sharpe's professional future. At the very moment when it appeared that the scandal had reached its nadir, Tony Buzbee, the incendiary attorney propelling the allegations, unleashed an even more devastating revelation. An audio recording, swiftly disseminated across social media platforms, captured Sharpe allegedly issuing threats against Gabriella in language that left little room for misinterpretation. In the recording, Sharpe's tone is menacingly subdued, resembling a growl as he states, "I'm gonna choke the out of you." Following this already disturbing statement, he compounds the discomfort with a racially charged remark, "Big black guy choking a small white woman. Not a good look." The internet, predictably, reacted with ferocity. Within moments of the audio's release, a maelstrom of debates erupted across digital forums and social networks. Some commentators posited that this might represent a consensual roleplay scenario gone awry, one that, devoid of its original context, sounds alarmingly incriminating. Others contended that the recording constituted unequivocal evidence of genuine misconduct. Thus, the court of public opinion, which frequently exerts pressures even more consequential than formal legal proceedings, remained bitterly polarized. Concurrently, Busby has escalated his offensive, intensifying public scrutiny on Sharpe at every opportunity. He asserts that Sharpe sought to suppress the allegations by proposing a $10 million settlement to Gabriella, aiming to resolve the matter outside the public eye. Yet, the narrative takes an unexpected turn. Gabriella reportedly declined the financial offer, a decision that immediately prompted speculation regarding her motives. The prevailing conjecture suggests that Gabriella's refusal may not stem from ethical convictions alone. Insiders speculate that her strategy involves withholding a comprehensive, unedited 10-minute recording. Should the contents of this tape prove more damning than the initial excerpt, the controversy surrounding Sharpe will undoubtedly escalate further. Rather than reaching its conclusion, this saga may, in fact, be merely entering its most volatile phase. Katt Williams has now re-emerged, a figure who, for weeks, remained quietly positioned at the margins, evidently savoring the implosion of Shannon Sharpe's meticulously constructed public persona. To understand his evident satisfaction, a brief retrospective is necessary. It recalls the notorious interview conducted on Club Shay Shay, wherein Williams' social media ablaze by divulging a litany of Hollywood's most closely guarded secrets. That single broadcast rapidly achieved viral status. However, the consequences that followed were far from favorable. Widespread criticism soon engulfed Sharpe, with numerous voices arguing that he had manipulated the conversation to extract scandalous revelations. Accusations circulated, asserting that Sharpe deliberately incited Williams to divulge increasingly damaging details solely to amplify viewer engagement. Dave Chappelle notably entered the discourse, indirectly chastising Sharpe by posing the rhetorical question, "Why you painting ugly pictures of us?" An implicit charge that Sharpe was commodifying black celebrity narratives for personal gain. The backlash proved swift and severe, compelling Sharpe to redirect culpability toward Williams, portraying him as an uncontrollable guest. Nevertheless, it is widely acknowledged that Katt Williams possesses a prodigious memory and an equally expansive capacity for holding grudges. Sources within his inner circle suggest that Williams neither forgave nor forgot Sharpe's perceived betrayal. Thus, amid Sharpe's current reputational collapse, Williams exhibits no inclination toward mercy. Reports indicate he has been discreetly informing colleagues and confidants, punctuated by sardonic smiles, "I knew he had a weird vibe." Is such behavior vindictive? Undeniably. Yet whether Williams' schadenfreude is unjustified remains a matter of subjective interpretation. Beyond the immediate barrage of litigation and sensational headlines, a far graver reality appears to be emerging. What we are witnessing transcends a mere celebrity scandal. It is effectively stripping away the curated facade of Hollywood, exposing the manipulative and transactional mechanisms that operate beneath its polished exterior. Consider, for instance, Gabriella's profile. Far from being a peripheral figure plucked randomly from social media obscurity, Gabriella had firmly established herself as a content creator on OnlyFans, monetizing fantasy roleplay services tailored for male clientele. Notably, this dimension of her career forms the cornerstone of Shannon Sharpe's legal defense. His counsel contends that their entire relationship constituted an extension of Gabriella's professional endeavors, a consensual, scripted fantasy enacted by two autonomous individuals. Whether this alignment is coincidental or indicative of a premeditated entrapment strategy remains a matter of intense public speculation. Opinions across digital platforms are fiercely polarized. Certain commentators argue that Sharpe has been strategically manipulated, ensnared in an elaborate scheme designed to extort wealth and tarnish his reputation. Conversely, others insist that the inherent disparities in age, social capital, and economic power render any notion of authentic consent deeply problematic. Given that Gabriella had only recently exited adolescence when their alleged involvement commenced, it becomes clear why this controversy provokes such visceral reactions. A further, and notably sensitive, dimension complicates the discourse: the racial dynamics at play. Attorney Tony Busby, now representing Gabriella, possesses a contentious history of litigating against high-profile black public figures. This pattern has prompted speculation regarding potential racial biases underlying his prosecutorial strategies, although skeptics suggest he is merely opportunistic, chasing lucrative settlements irrespective of race. Nevertheless, the optics have prompted considerable public scrutiny concerning his underlying motivations. The central tension, however, revolves around far more than individual reputations. As Sharpe reportedly nears final negotiations for a monumental $100 million podcast contract, the stakes escalate exponentially. This situation no longer hinges solely on issues of alleged misconduct. It encapsulates broader questions of narrative control, representational power, and the commodification of public perception. In contemporary Hollywood, reputation functions as a form of currency. And as this scandal intensifies, the battle over shaping that perception reveals itself to be as ruthless as any seen in the industry's storied history. At present, Shannon Sharpe finds himself entrenched in an intensive damage control campaign. An endeavor that, by most measures, appears increasingly untenable. Brands once eager to affiliate with his public persona are now withdrawing into strategic silence. Several corporate partners are reported to be re-evaluating their endorsements, while others have opted for complete disengagement without public explanation. Among his fanbase, opinions are sharply bifurcated. Some urge adherence to due process, advocating for a measured response until all evidence is disclosed. Others have preemptively abandoned him, treating his downfall as the latest cultural cancellation. Observing the collapse from the sidelines, with undisguised schadenfreude, is comedian Katt Williams, who, it is rumored, is privately crafting new material to memorialize Sharpe's misfortune. Yet, the most critical threat looming over Sharpe's precarious position is the alleged existence of a 10-minute recording. Should this tape surface, and should its contents align with the damning rumors circulating among insiders, it would almost certainly precipitate an irreversible reputational implosion. No public relations maneuver, legal counter-strategy, or rhetorical defense invoking context would likely suffice to salvage his image under such circumstances. Simultaneously, the collateral consequences of the controversy are compounding. Gabriella's personal information has been widely disseminated online, triggering waves of harassment, unsolicited sympathy, and polarized public discourse. Her attorney, Tony Busby, remains undeterred. Credible reports suggest he is amassing additional evidence and formulating an even more expansive legal offensive. Meanwhile, an army of amateur investigators, spanning TikTok analysts, Twitter commentators, and Reddit theorists, have mobilized to comb through Sharpe's historical media footprint. Past interviews, podcasts, and televised appearances are now being re-examined with forensic intensity. Every seemingly innocuous remark, every jest, every uneasy chuckle is undergoing reinterpretation. Observers are now debating whether these artifacts represent mere expressions of conventional locker room banter or were, in retrospect, indicative of more troubling behavioral patterns. The fundamental question remains unresolved. Will the full truth ultimately emerge through judicial proceedings, or is this saga destined to follow the familiar arc of the celebrity scandal cycle, burning fiercely before vanishing into collective amnesia? Irrespective of the outcome, one certainty persists. Sharpe is encountering a brutal reality familiar to modern public figures. In an era dominated by viral indignation and relentless archival exposure, the court of public opinion delivers its judgments instantaneously. And once rendered, such verdicts are nearly impossible to overturn. Thus, a critical question emerges. Is the backlash against Sharpe a justified societal response to serious allegations, or is it symptomatic of a failed extortion attempt that has spiraled beyond control? Readers are encouraged to contribute their interpretations in the comments section. Meanwhile, developments continue to unfold. Speculation abounds that Katt Williams is preparing yet another incendiary podcast exposé, this time reportedly targeting a new figure within the entertainment elite. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and then check out this next video.